What is anger? A Buddhist journey to end hatred. Let me ask you something, straight from the heart. Have you ever been so angry that your hands shook, your chest tightened, and your thoughts started spinning like a storm you couldn't stop? Maybe someone lied to you. Maybe they hurt someone you love. Or maybe it was something small like a harsh word, a slammed door, a dismissive glance. But whatever it was, it struck something deep. It stayed, it festered, it grew. That's right, there is anger, and we all know it. But what if I told you that anger is not what it seems? What if I told you it's not power, not strength, not clarity, but the very opposite? What if I told you that anger is a fire, and the first thing it burns is you? In this journey, I want to take you deep, not into theories, not into lofty teachings only, but into your own heart, your real, raw experiences. Because that's where anger lives, and that's where it can be uprooted. We're going to walk through the teachings of the Buddha, yes, but not in a dry, academic way. We'll walk like old friends, like seekers, like wounded wanderers, learning how to breathe again. We're going to uncover what anger really is, where it comes from, why it destroys, and most importantly, how to let it go. Not just for a moment, not just to be spiritual, but to be free. So let's begin. Let's start with a simple question. What is anger? According to the teachings of the Buddha, anger is a form of dosa, mental defilement, a poison dot. But it's not just one emotion. It comes in layers, in shapes, in degrees. Let me paint you a picture. Imagine you meet someone who annoys you a little. They interrupt you, dismiss you, maybe talk behind your back. You feel irritated. That irritation, that's ill will, a passing shadow of anger. It might not explode, but it lingers. It whispers things like, they don't deserve kindness, or I hope they fail. Then imagine that irritation growing. Imagine you keep seeing this person, hearing about them, remembering what they did. Now you feel it every time their name is mentioned. You wish them unhappiness. You actively want them to suffer. That's anger, stronger, more rooted. It starts to shape your behavior, your words, your choices. But there's still one more layer, the deepest, darkest one. Hatred. Hatred isn't just about wishing someone harm. It's about not seeing their humanity anymore. It's about carrying that wish across days, years, lifetimes. Hatred poisons your sleep, your smile, your sanity. It eats you alive while promising you power, but it never delivers. It only takes. The Buddha gave us a profound metaphor for the types of people who deal with anger. He said, there are three kinds of people in the world. One is like a line carved in stone. One is like a line drawn in sand, and one is like a line drawn in water. Think about that. The first person, the one like a line carved in stone, holds onto anger for days, for years, maybe even until death. This person replays the same wound over and over again. They nurse their pain like a sacred grudge. Forgiveness, that's for the weak, they think, but really, it's they who are weak, because they are slaves to a moment they cannot escape. Then there's the second person, the one like a line drawn in sand. This person gets angry. Yes, they feel the heat rise. Maybe they snap, but give it time. Let the wind blow. Let the sun rise. And slowly, that anger fades. This person is still human, still flawed, but they don't let anger define them. There's a softness in them, willingness to return, to reconcile, to remember love. And finally, the third kind, that the one like a line drawn in water. This person is rare. When someone hurts them, the hurt comes, yes, but like a ripple. And then, it's gone. No trace. No scar. Just calm water again. Can you imagine that kind of heart? One that refuses to hold on to pain. One that releases not because it forgets, but because it understands. That is a heart free of hatred. That is the heart of a sage. That is the goal. Now, let's ask, where does anger come from? This is important, because if we don't know the roots, we can't pull them out. Anger begins in perception. Imagine this. You're walking in a crowded place. Someone bumps into you hard. You drop your bag. Your phone cracks. You feel pain in your shoulder. What's your first thought? If you think, that person did it on purpose, they're disrespectful, they saw me and didn't care, anger will rise instantly. But what if you thought instead, oh, maybe they didn't see me. Maybe they were pushed. Maybe they're having a bad day. Same event, very different reaction. This is the power of thought. The Buddha said, with our thoughts, we make the world, and that includes the world of anger. When we believe someone meant to hurt us, Our mind reacts like a soldier preparing for war. Our breath changes, our muscles tighten, our face hardens. But if we pause, if we choose curiosity over judgment, we open a different door, one that leads to peace. Now, don't misunderstand. This doesn't mean we excuse harm. It means we don't let it infect us. It means we choose wisdom over reaction. Because as the Buddha said, holding on to anger is like grasping a hot coal with the intent of throwing it at someone else. You are the one who gets burned. Let's take this deeper. What does anger do to us? Physically, emotionally, socially, spiritually. It clouds our mind. Have you ever tried to solve a problem while angry? You probably said things you didn't mean, made decisions you regretted, pushed people away. Anger makes you feel powerful, but only for a moment. Then it leaves you feeling empty, exhausted, and ashamed. And it's not just emotional. Studies have shown that chronic anger leads to high blood pressure, heart disease, insomnia, weakened immune system, even increased risk of stroke. But beyond the body, anger breaks relationships. It creates distance, breeds resentment, turns love into silence. How many friendships have ended with a fight? How many families stopped speaking over a single argument? And perhaps most tragically, how many lives have been lost simply because someone could not let go of one moment of fury? The Buddha went even further. He said anger doesn't just harm this life, it harms future lives. He taught that when we die, our karma, our intentional actions follow us. Anger creates unwholesome karma, and the result, rebirth in lower realms. The Buddha said that those who live with hatred may be reborn in the animal realm, where fear and violence rule, in the ghost realm, where craving burns without satisfaction, or even in hell realms where suffering is constant. But those who cultivate loving, who uproot anger, may be reborn as beautiful humans, as devas in heavenly realms, or even on the path to Nibbana. Also, the stakes are higher than we think. Letting go of anger isn't just for peace, now it's for peace forever. And here's something powerful. You might think anger is just an emotion, but it's actually a choice, a learned habit. And like all habits, it can be unlearned. The Buddha didn't just say, don't be angry. He showed how, through mindfulness, through right view, through loving-kindness. And that, dear listener, is what we'll explore in the next part of our journey. We'll learn not just why to let go of anger, but how to transform it into compassion, into freedom, into a heart like water, calm, clear, and undisturbed. Before a fire engulfs a house, there's a single spark. Before an earthquake shatters the land, there's a tremor. And before anger explodes into shouting, slamming doors, or silent resentment, there's a whisper in the mind, a flicker, a shift, a moment. And in that moment lies your freedom. In this part of our journey, I want to walk with you into that space, the space before the explosion, because that's where anger is weakest, and that's where you are strongest. Let me ask you something gently. Can you remember the very moment when anger began? Not when it erupted, but when it began. Was it a word someone said, a tone in their voice, a memory that came up? Or maybe it was something even subtler, an expectation unmet, a feeling of being unseen or unvalued. That's where mindfulness begins. The Buddha taught that mindfulness, sati, is the guardian of the mind. It's the lamp that lets us see the shadow before it takes shape. And when we see clearly, we have a choice. Do we feed the fire, or do we breathe and let it pass? There's a story told from the Buddha's time. One day, a monk was meditating under a tree. A man passed by and insulted him, calling him lazy and useless. The monk sat still, calm, unshaken. The man grew frustrated and said, "Did you not hear me?" The monk looked up gently and said, "Yes, I did." The man snapped, "Well, aren't you going to react?" The monk replied, "If someone brings a gift but I choose not to accept it, to whom does the gift belong?" The man fell silent. That is the power of mindfulness. It sees the offering of anger and chooses not to receive it. But how do we practice this? Because let's be honest, it's easy to be calm in theory. It's harder when someone mocks you in front of others, when your child screams at you, when your partner betrays your trust, when life feels unjust. So we need tools, and the first is this too. 1. Watch the body. The body is honest. It doesn't lie. It doesn't hide. Long before you speak in anger, your body knows. You'll feel it in the clenching jaw, the tightening fists, the pounding heart, the short breath. When you feel these signs, pause. Don't speak yet. Don't act yet. Just breathe. The Buddha said, as a man who is struck by an arrow feels pain, so too does one who is struck by anger suffer. But the one who notices the pain and tends to it with mindfulness does not shoot a second arrow. That second arrow, it's what we do after the anger arises. It's the cruel words, the slammed door, the lifelong regret. Mindfulness is how we stop ourselves from shooting that second arrow. 2. Watch the thoughts. The next place to shine your mindfulness is your mind, because anger comes with a script. It says, they did this on purpose. They never listen. They always disrespect me. Sound familiar? These thoughts are like fuel. They feed the fire. But what if you questioned them? What if you said, maybe they didn't mean it? Maybe they're hurting too. Maybe they're hurting too. I don't know the full story. This isn't weakness. This is wisdom. It's seeing that our thoughts are not facts. They're just habit stories we tell ourselves. And mindfulness gives us the power to choose better stories. Let me share something personal. That I once knew a woman who carried anger for over 30 years. Her brother had left the family in a time of need. She believed he abandoned them, that he didn't care. She told this story to herself over and over, and every time his name came up, her face darkened, her voice turned sharp, her chest tightened. One day, after attending a meditation retreat, she decided to write him a letter not to forgive, but just to ask why. He replied, and in his letter, he explained that he had been deeply ashamed of his own failure, that he had lost his job, suffered from depression, and didn't want to be a burden, that he distanced himself, not out of cruelty, but self-hatred. She read that letter and wept for 3 days, not just for him, but for herself. For the 30 years she'd carried a story that wasn't true. That is the weight of unexamined thoughts. That is the prison of anger. And that's what mindfulness can dissolve. 3. Watch the craving. Underneath, this is where things get really honest, because anger is often just a mask. Beneath it is craving, a craving for control, for respect, for comfort, for justice, for love. We're angry, not just because someone said something rude, but because we needed them to say something kind, not just because they left, but because we needed them to stay. The Buddha taught that suffering comes from attachment, from craving and anger. It's what arises when that craving is denied. So the next time you feel angry, ask, what was I attached to? What was I hoping for? Can I grieve that loss without rage? That's where healing begins. 4. Create space. When you feel anger rising, try this. Leave the room, step outside, sit under a tree, look at the sky, wash your face. This is not avoidance, it's protection. It's protection. It's saying, I am not going to let this moment define me. The Buddha said, just as a log that floats on the river and does not get caught on either bank, does not sink and is not taken away by humans or spirits, that log will reach the ocean. So too will the one who floats through life with mindfulness reach liberation. Create space, float above the fire. You'll be amazed at how quickly anger loses its grip. 5. Cultivate loving-kindness. We single quotes LL. Go deeper into this in future parts, but here, just remember, mindfulness isn't just about watching anger. It's about replacing it, and the best replacement. Metta, loving-kindness. It begins with a simple thought. May I be free from anger. May others be free from anger. May we live with peace. Repeat it in your heart, like a mantra, like a blessing, even when you don't feel it, especially then, because every time you choose loving kindness over anger, you weaken the chain of hatred. You plant seeds of peace in your heart and in the world. In closing this part, I want to leave you with this. Anger is not you. It's not your nature. It's just a visitor. And mindfulness is the gentle hand that shows it the way out. You don't need to fight it. You don't need to fear it. You only need to see it clearly, kindly, like a parent watching a child. Throw a tantrum with patience, with love. That is the path, and that is your power. Let me tell you a story. Once a man came to the Buddha. His face was tired. His eyes were heavy. His heart was clearly burdened. He said, "Venerable Sir, I cannot let go of what they did to me. I have tried. I've meditated. I've chanted, but the pain is too deep, the memory too sharp, the wound too fresh." The Buddha looked at him with eyes full of compassion and said gently, "What you are carrying is not anger anymore, my son. It has ripened into hatred. And hatred is not just a visitor. It's a poison that lives in your blood." In this part of our journey, we dive deeper. We've talked about anger, how it rises, how to catch it before it burns. But now, we must face the version of anger that refuses to leave, the one that camps out in your soul, that whispers in your sleep, that reshapes your entire worldview. This is hatred, and if anger is a spark, hatred is a slow, steady flame that chars the whole house from the inside. You might ask, how do I know if what I feel is hatred? Let me walk you through it. Hatred is when you cannot wish well to someone who's wronged you. You fantasize about their downfall. You speak of them with sarcasm, bitterness, or cruelty. You avoid them not to protect your peace, but to hold on to your pain. You repeat the story again and again, always ending with, "I'll never forgive." Hatred is not just a feeling. It's a home you build in your heart, brick by brick, with every painful memory. And the problem, you're the one who has to live in it. Let's be honest for a moment. We often think hatred is justified. They betrayed me. They abused my trust. They hurt someone I love. And maybe that's true. But here's what the Buddha asks us. If someone hurt you once, why let them hurt you 1,000 times more in your own mind? Why give them that power? Why turn their action into your prison? Hatred feels like control, but it's really a chain. A golden one. Maybe one that shines with pride and self-righteousness, but a chain nonetheless. Let's return to a story. There was once a monk named Angulimala. Before he became a disciple of the Buddha, he was a murderer feared across the land. He had taken so many lives that his name struck fear into everyone who heard it. One day, he encountered the Buddha. He chased him with his sword, but somehow, no matter how fast he ran, he couldn't catch him. Out of breath, he shouted, "Stop, monk." The Buddha turned calmly and said, "I have already stopped, Angulimala. It is you who has not stopped." That moment broke something in Angulimala. He dropped the sword. He wept. He became a monk. He became free. Now listen carefully. If the Buddha can forgive a murderer, can we forgive those who have wounded our ego, our pride, even our heart? Can we begin to see them not as villains but as beings in pain, lost in their own delusion? That's the perspective that kills hatred, not through force, but through understanding. What if the hatred is not for others? What if it's turned inward? Because let's be real, some of the deepest hatred we carry is for ourselves. We hate the mistakes we've made. We hate the things we've said. We hate the opportunities we missed. We hate how we look, how we failed, how we weren't enough. This is self-hatred, and it's just as dangerous. The Buddha said, "You yourself, as much as anyone in the entire universe, deserve your love and affection. You're not the same person who made those mistakes. You've changed, you're trying, you're here, and that means something. So let me say it plainly. You can let go of that past version of you. You don't have to carry the shame like a second skin. You don't have to live inside a memory of your worst moment. Hatred, whether toward others or yourself, is always rooted in the past. But your healing, your liberation, that happens now. Here's where we turn the corner. If hatred is a poison, what's the antidote? It's not revenge, not silence, not even justice. It's this, compassion. But I want to be clear, this isn't the fake kind, not the "pack, I forgive you but I hope you fail" kind, not the "I'll pretend to smile while hating you inside" kind. True compassion comes when you understand one thing deeply. Hurt people. Everyone who's ever hurt you was likely hurt themselves. That doesn't excuse the harm, but it does explain it. And when you see that, you stop seeing them as demons. You start seeing them as humans, wounded, lost, afraid, just like you were once. Let's do an exercise together. Close your eyes, take a breath. Now picture someone you hate, not just dislike, hate. Notice how your body feels when you think of them, the heat, the tightness, the discomfort. Now say, quietly, in your mind, may you be free from your pain. May you be free from your confusion. May you find peace. At first, this will feel fake, like lying, but keep going. Say it again and again and again. One day, it won't be a lie. It'll be a release. You're not setting them free. You're setting yourself free. Now, let me share one more story before we close this part. It's a story about two monks. They were imprisoned during a brutal war. They were beaten, tortured, humiliated. Years later, one of them was released. A friend asked him, "Did you ever hate your captors?" He said no. The friend was shocked. How? After all, they did. The monk replied, "Because if I hated them, I would still be their prisoner." That is the power of letting go. That is the freedom that waits beyond hatred. So here is your reflection. Who do you still carry in your heart with clenched fists? What pain are you still feeding with memory and story? And are you ready, maybe to open your hand, to let it fall, to begin again? Because the truth is, forgiveness isn't something you give to others, it's something you give to yourself. Have you ever stood at the edge of your own heart, wanting to forgive, aching to be free, but unable to take that final step? Because something inside whispers, but they don't deserve it. They haven't even apologized. If I forgive, it means what they did was okay. If so, you are not alone. This is the part of the journey where most people stop, where they turn back, where they choose the comfort of bitterness over the discomfort of healing. Because forgiveness is hard, especially when the wounds are deep, especially when trust was shattered, when words became weapons, when someone you loved became worse, an enemy. But forgiveness is not about them. It never was. Forgiveness is about you. It's about whether you want to keep drinking the poison of resentment, or whether you're ready to let that cup fall from your hand and shatter once and for all. Let me begin with a truth that might shock you. You don't need an apology to forgive. Yes, I'll say it again. You do not need an apology to forgive, because forgiveness is not a transaction. It is a release. It's not waiting for the other person to say, "I'm sorry." It's saying, "I'm done carrying this pain. I'm done living in this memory. I'm ready to be free." You see, waiting for someone else to fix what they broke puts your healing in their hands. But what if they never say sorry? What if they've passed away? What if they still don't see their mistake? Will you stay imprisoned forever, or will you take your power back? Here's another truth. You don't have to forget to forgive. That's another myth we tell ourselves. If I forgive, I'll have to pretend it didn't happen. No, you can remember. You can honor the pain. You can learn the lesson. You can draw the boundary, but you don't have to carry the rage. Forgiveness isn't erasing the past. It's choosing not to live inside it. It's saying, yes, this happened. Yes, it hurt, but I will not let it define the rest of my life. That is strength. Let me walk you through the process. It's not magic. It's not overnight, but it's real. And it starts with 1. Acknowledging the pain. You cannot forgive what you haven't allowed yourself to feel. Many people skip this step. They rush to pretend they're okay. They numb it with distractions, addictions, busyness. But the Buddha taught us to look deeply, not to flinch, not to look away. So go ahead. Write the letter you'll never send. Speak the truth you've never said out loud. Cry the tears you've been holding back for years. That is not weakness. This is cleansing. Let it out. Name the hurt. Only then can you begin to release it. 2. Seeing the person as a person. This is the hardest step, but also the most powerful. Try to see the one who hurt you just as a villain in your story, but as a human being, flawed, conditioned, wounded. Just like you try to understand their pain. What led them to be so cruel? What fear were they acting from? What ignorance clouded their mind? Again, this is not about excusing the behavior. This is about stepping into compassion. The Buddha taught that all beings are the owners of their actions, heirs to their actions, born of their actions, related to their actions. In other words, they will face the results of their actions. But you don't have to carry their karma anymore. 3. Letting go of the story. This part takes time, because we love our stories. I was the victim, they were the villain. I was right, they were wrong. These stories become part of our identity. We repeat them like mantras. They give us a sense of righteousness, but they also keep us stuck. So now, ask yourself, what would I be without this story? What if you were more than just what happened to you? What if your life could be bigger than that one chapter? What if, instead of telling the story again, you closed the book, not in denial, but in peace? 4. Offering loving caresses, even here, even now, even when it feels impossible. Try this practice. Sit quietly. Picture the person who hurt you. Inhale deeply. Exhale slowly. Then say, in your heart, I forgive you. I release you. May you find peace. Even if you don't mean it fully, say it anyway. Even if your voice shakes, say it anyway. Because every time you say it, you're watering a seed, and one day, it will grow 5. Forgiving yourself. This part, we often forget, because we think, I should have known better. I should have left sooner. I shouldn't have trusted them. I failed. But the Buddha never asked us to be perfect. He only asked us to wake up. And forgiveness is part of awakening. Forgive yourself for the times you didn't protect your own heart. Forgive yourself for not being stronger sooner. Forgive yourself for being human. And remember this, the fact that you are reading, listening, healing means you are no longer that person. You are growing, you are changing, and that deserves grace. Let me share one last story. It's not from ancient texts, it's from a woman I met during a retreat. She was in her 60s. She had been abused by her father for years as a child. She spent decades with hatred in her bones, until one day, while meditating, something shifted. She didn't forget what he did. She didn't excuse it, but she saw him, in her mind, as a little boy beaten by his own father. And for the first time, she didn't feel rage. She felt sorrow. She said, "I realized he was a broken man who broke others." And that day, she forgave him, not for his sake, but for her own. She said it felt like taking off a coat of fire she'd worn for 40 years. She said, "I finally felt clean." That's what forgiveness can do. Not make things okay, but make you okay. It doesn't fix the past, it frees the future. So if you're standing at the edge of your own heart, and if you're ready even just a little to take that final step, let me walk with you. Say it softly. Say it bravely. Say it now. I forgive you. I release you. I set myself free. That is how healing begins. Let's begin with a question. Have you ever been so angry you shook? Have you felt your hands tremble, your heart race, your jaw tighten so hard it hurt? We often think of anger as a loud emotion, shouting, slamming doors, arguments. But the deepest damage anger does isn't always visible. It doesn't always scream. Sometimes it simmers, and what simmers scars. In this part, we aren't just going to explore what anger feels like. We're going to reveal what anger does to the body, to relationships, and to the soul. Because you deserve to know the truth. Anger is not just an emotion, it's a disease. Let's start with the body. When we hold on to anger, when we replay arguments, hold grudges, nurse resentments, our bodies react. Stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline flood our system. Blood pressure rises, heart rate quickens, muscles tense, the immune system weakens. Over time, this creates chronic headaches, sleep problems, digestive issues, increased risk of heart attacks and strokes, suppressed immunity, making us vulnerable to illness. The Buddha said, holding on to anger is like grasping a hot coal with the intent of throwing it at someone else. You are the one who gets burned. That's not poetry, that is physiology. Now, what about relationships? Think of the people you love most. Now, ask yourself, how many times have I hurt them? Not with fists, but with words said in anger. How many opportunities to connect were lost because of pride? How many bridges have I burned, then stood watching from afar, too bitter to rebuild? Anger makes us say things we don't mean, or worse, say things we do mean, but should have never said. We speak to win, not to understand. We lash out to heal, but to punish. And each time, something inside the relationship quietly withers. A little trust disappears. A little warmth fades. A little safety crumbles. Until one day, the person is still there, but the bond is gone. Let me tell you a true story. There was a father and a son. The father was a hard man, stern, demanding, quick to anger. He always wanted his son to be strong, disciplined, obedient. One day, in a heated moment, the boy failed at something small. The father erupted. He shouted, insulted, even slapped the boy. The son, just 12, ran away. He returned later that night, silent. They never spoke of it again. Decades passed. The son grew into a man. The father grew old. One day, the father, lying in a hospital bed, turned to his son with teary eyes and said, "I don't remember what you did wrong, but I remember what I did wrong, and I've lived with that ever since." You see, anger leaves footprints in the heart. Long after the moment has passed, long after we forget the details, we remember the hurt. And sometimes, we carry it for life. What about society? Zoom out, look around the world. How many wars, how many shootings, how many divorces, betrayals, feuds have started from one tiny seed of anger? Sometimes it's over land, sometimes over pride, sometimes over a tweet. The Buddha once said, "An angry mind leads to utter ruin," and history has proven it again and again. Anger makes enemies of neighbors. It makes strangers into monsters. It makes good people commit unspeakable acts. Left unchecked, Anger can destroy not just lives, but civilizations. Now let's go even deeper. What does anger do to the soul? According to the Buddha, anger doesn't end with death. If we carry hatred in our hearts, if we let anger shape our thoughts, our speech, our actions, then that energy, those karmic imprints follow us into the next life. He taught that those who live in hatred often face rebirths in lower realms, as beings trapped in hell-like, suffering as animals, driven by instinct and fear as hungry. Ghosts always craving, never satisfied. Why? Because anger clouds the mind, it blinds us from truth. It blocks the light of wisdom, and without wisdom, we cannot find freedom. We stay stuck life after life, chained by our own rage. Now pause with me. Take a breath. Ask yourself, is it worth it? Is the thrill of being right worth the long nights of regret? Is the satisfaction of revenge worth the loneliness that follows? Is the burning need to be heard worth the silence it creates later? Probably not, because deep down, you already know anger feels powerful, but it makes you weak. It feels righteous, but it makes you cruel. It feels like fire, but it leaves only ashes. Let's shift now. Gently. What happens when we let go? When we choose calm over chaos? When we breathe before reacting? When we speak with Karivan in pain? We begin to feel something we forgot was possible. Peace, and not just any peace, but a peace that can sit in the middle of pain and say, I see you, but I choose love. This peace heals the body, that it calms the heart, it softens the soul, it makes us better friends, partners, parents, children, leaders. It gives us clarity, because we are no longer blinded by flames. Let me close with a story from the Buddha's own life. One day, a man came to the Buddha and began to insult him harshly, endlessly. But the Buddha remained calm, unmoved. Finally, the man asked, "Aren't you angry?" The Buddha replied, "If someone offers you a gift and you do not accept it, to whom does the gift belong?" The man was stunned. The Buddha smiled and said, "I do not accept your anger, so it remains with you." What a lesson you don't have to accept the anger of others, and you don't have to keep your own. You can let it go. You can choose to not suffer anymore. So here's your reflection for this part. What has anger cost you? What parts of yourself have you lost in rage? Who would you be if you no longer carried it? Think about it, write it down, and maybe start to let it go. One breath at a time, one memory at a time, one act of love at a time. We often imagine anger as loud shouting, slamming, swearing. But what if I told you, some of the most dangerous forms of anger are the ones that whisper. They don't erupt. They seep. They creep into your voice, your choices, your silence. They wear masks. Sarcasm, coldness, passive aggression, quiet resentment, smiling, bitterness. In this part, we pull back the curtain. We look closely at the subtle faces of anger, because until we recognize them, we can't release them. And these are the angers that often linger the longest. Let's start with something many of us relate to. 1. Irritation. It's 6 a.m. Your neighbor's dog starts barking. You mutter under your breath. Slam the window shut. You tell yourself, I'm not angry, just annoyed. But here's the thing. Annoyance is anger's baby brother. And if left unacknowledged, it grows. The Buddha taught that even a small spark, if not watched, can start a wildfire. Irritation is often dismissed as normal, but repeated often enough, it becomes your default mood. You become the person who's always bothered, always tense, always one step away from snapping. That's not peace, that's a ticking clock. 2. Passive aggression. We've all seen it. Maybe we've all done it. Your partner forgets your birthday. Instead of saying you're hurt, you smile coldly and say, it's fine. I didn't expect much anyway. You offer help with a side of bitterness. You agree to something, but do it poorly, on purpose. You give the silent treatment for days. This is anger with makeup on. It pretends to be calm, but it poisons connection. Why? Because it hides the truth under layers of manipulation. The Buddha encouraged honest speech, gentle, timely, truthful. Passive aggression is none of those. It's dishonesty, dressed as dignity. 3. Judgment. Look at them, always showing off. Why does she dress like that? They're so lazy, he's so stupid. Sound familiar? Judgment is anger pointing outward. It tells us we're better than others, but beneath it is insecurity. We judge because something in us is uncomfortable, so we project. We make others less so we can feel more. The Buddha taught us, To look inward, not outward. To examine our own mind, not other people's faults. Because the more we judge, the more we feed our ego, and the ego loves anger. For sarcasm and mockery, some people say, it's just a joke. Don't be so sensitive. But sarcasm often carries hidden cruelty. It's a sharp blade covered in glitter. It allows us to hurt without owning the hurt. We say what we really feel, then laugh, so no one can call us out. But deep down, we know the tone was wrong. The intention was unkind. The Buddha said, speak only what is true, beneficial, and pleasing to the ear. Sarcasm rarely checks all three. 5. Withholding love. This is the quietest kind of anger. You're upset, so you stop speaking. You withdraw affection. You ignore texts. You leave seen messages unread. You stop hugging, smiling, touching. You build a wall and hope they'll notice. But love is not a weapon. It's not something to be dangled or denied. Withholding love is like turning off the lights to punish the darkness. No one wins. Not them. Not you. The Buddha taught that loving kindness is the antidote to hatred. When we withhold it, we drink the poison ourselves. 6. Self-criticism. As anger can turn inward. You forget something and think, I'm so stupid. You make a mistake and say, I'll never be good enough. This is self-directed anger. It hides behind discipline and standards, but it wounds. The Buddha never shamed us for imperfection. He offered compassion even to the most broken. Can you do the same? Because self-compassion is not indulgence, it's medicine. Point 7. Suppressed. Silent. Some people never raise their voice. They never argue. They never express disappointment. They seem calm, but inside, a storm brews. They smile at people they resent. They say yes when they want to scream no. They think they're avoiding anger, but really they're drowning in it. Unspoken anger becomes tension. Tension becomes illness. Illness becomes suffering. The Buddha didn't teach us to hide anger. He taught us to understand it and let it go. That begins with honesty with yourself and others. 8. Revenge fantasies. If you never act on them, imagining someone getting what they deserve, is anger wearing a crown that it gives you a false sense of justice. But what it really gives you is bitterness. The Buddha once said, hatred does not cease by hatred. Hatred ceases by love. This is the eternal law. Revenge may feel sweet in thought, but in reality it binds you to the person you resent. You carry them in your head, your heart, your dreams. That's not justice. That's a prison. Point 9. Blame. You made me angry. You ruined my day. You're the reason I'm like this. We blame to avoid accountability. It's easier to point fingers than face our pain. But the Buddha taught us to look deeper. No one makes us angry. Our reactions are our own. Others may trigger us, but the flame, that lives inside us, and it's our responsibility to blow it out, not to pour fuel. 10. Over control is often a response to fear, and fear is often anger in disguise. We control people because we fear disappointment. We micromanage because we fear failure. We dominate conversations because we fear being unheard. Control looks strong, but it's rooted in weakness. True strength allows, it surrenders, it trusts, it lets go. The Buddha sat under a tree, open, vulnerable, free, no fortress, no shield. That's the courage we're invited to grow. So here's the final reflection of this part. Where is anger hiding in my life? It may not shout, it may whisper, but it's there. And the more aware you become, the more you can choose peace again and again, just in big moments, but in the little ones. In the sigh instead of the scream. In the pause instead of the push. In the smile instead of the sarcasm. In the breath that says, I'm not going there today. Because once you see anger's disguises, you can stop dancing with them and finally rest in truth. Have you ever tried to fight fire with fire? It doesn't work. You can scream at someone who's already angry, and what happens? Their voice gets louder, their eyes narrow, their heart closes. But what if you do the opposite? What if, in the middle of their fury, you stay calm? What if you say, gently, I understand you're upset. I'm here when you're ready to talk. Something incredible begins to happen. The fire starts to fade, not because you fed it, but because you refuse to be burned. This is not weakness. This is loving-kindness. End. It's the greatest power on earth. The Buddha didn't just teach us to avoid anger. He taught us to replace it with its purest opposite, metta, a warm, boundless friendliness that expects nothing in return. Metta isn't about romantic love. It isn't about liking someone, it's deeper. It's the kind of love that says, may you be happy, may you be safe, may you be peaceful, may you be free, even if that person has hurt you, even if you'll never speak again, even if they never say sorry, because loving kindness isn't for them, it's for you. Let's talk practice. How do we develop loving kindness? Not just as a theory, but as a living, breathing force in our daily lives. We begin small. Step 1. Start with yourself. Yes-you. Because. So many of us have forgotten how to love ourselves. Close your eyes, place your hand over your heart, and silently say, may I be well, may I be kind to myself, may I be free from anger, may I live in peace. Do this not once, not twice, but every single day. You'll begin to notice the way you speak to yourself softens. You forgive your mistakes faster. You stop comparing. You stop punishing. And as you become gentle inside, you become gentle outside. Step 2. Extend it to loved ones. Think of someone you care about, a parent, friend, child. Picture their face. Now offer the same wish. May you be happy. May you be healthy. May you live with ease. Feel the warmth in your chest as you do this. It's like sunlight on water. Simple, quiet, healing. Do this until it becomes natural. Until you look at someone and your first instinct is kindness, not judgment. Step 3. Now the hard part. Think of someone you resent, someone who hurt you, someone who makes your stomach tighten. Don't force forgiveness. Don't fake affection. Just start with this. May you find peace. May you be free from suffering. May you awaken to love. It's okay if it feels unnatural at first. It will feel unnatural. That's because your heart is used to protecting itself with walls. Loving kindness is the process of gently, patiently removing those walls, brick by brick, tear by tear. Let me tell you a story. There once was a monk who had been hurt deeply by a fellow disciple. He was humiliated, publicly mocked, disrespected. He carried that wound for years. Then, one day, during a meditation retreat, he decided to try metta. At first, he couldn't bring himself to say the words for his enemy, but he kept returning to the cushion. Every day. He visualized that man, and every day he whispered the phrases, may you be well, may you be free. 1 month passed, then 2, then 3. One morning, something shifted. As he said the words, he suddenly began to cry, not because he was angry, but because he finally felt free, not from the other person, but from the burden he had carried. That is the power of loving kindness, that it breaks chains. You don't have to be a monk to feel that freedom. You just need willingness. You need the courage to say, I will not let hatred live in me anymore. Because here's the truth. Anger feels powerful, but it's love that heals. It's love that creates. It's love that lasts. Now, let us bring metta off the cushion into real life. You're in traffic. Someone cuts you off. Instead of cursing, breathe out. May they be safe. A friend betrays you. You feel rage boiling. Pause. Say, I don't have to hold this. I choose peace. You see suffering in the news. Whisper to the screen, may all beings be free from fear. Every act of kindness, no matter how small, is a rebellion against hatred. A smile, a held door, a gentle response when you could have lashed out. These are seeds. They grow into forests. And remember, metta is not just for people, it's for animals, for insects, for the earth itself. When we radiate kindness, we change the world. The Buddha once said, as a mother would risk her life to protect her only child, so should one cultivate a boundless heart toward all beings. That's the ideal. That's the path. You won't be perfect. You'll still get angry sometimes. That's okay. What matters is that you catch it, that you say, I see you, anger, but I choose something better. That choice made again and again will transform your life, and eventually, your anger will become like a faint memory, something that used to define you, but no longer does. So as we end this part, take one moment, think of someone you struggle with, visualize their face, then gently say, may you be happy, may you be free, may I release this burden, and breathe. That's metta in action. That's healing. That's liberation. Have you ever been wronged in a way that shook your soul? Maybe someone betrayed your trust, abandoned you when you needed them most, or said something so cutting that it echoed in your heart for years. And maybe, despite all your efforts, you still can't let it go. You smile on the outside, but deep inside there's still that knot, that shadow, that ache. This is where forgiveness comes in, not as a favor to the one who hurt you, but as a gift to yourself. Forgiveness, in the Buddha's path, is not forgetting, it's not denying what happened, it's not pretending it didn't matter. No. Forgiveness is the courageous decision to stop carrying the pain. It's setting down the burden that has already bruised you long enough. It's the whisper you tell yourself. I deserve peace more than I deserve justice. Let's begin this part with a story, one I heard in a monastery, tucked into the green hills of Sri Lanka. There was once a woman named Anama. She had spent her whole life caring for her husband, who was a teacher. She cooked, she cleaned, she stood by him through poverty. But when he met someone new, younger, more glamorous, he left her. No explanation, no apology, just vanished. Anama was devastated. She cried every night for months. She stopped eating, stopped chanting, stopped living. When she finally visited the monastery, the old monk there asked her gently, "Are you still holding the hot coal?" She looked confused. The monk smiled and said, "Anger is like holding a burning coal and expecting the other person to feel the heat, but you're the one burning." That day, Anima began her journey of forgiveness. It didn't happen overnight, but little by little, her heart softened. And one morning, as she sat under the Bodhi tree, she wept not with grief, but relief. She whispered, "I forgive him, not because he asked, but because I need to heal." That is the essence of Buddhist forgiveness. It is not dependent on others. It is born from our own wisdom. There are countless stories like Anima's, a monk forgiving the man who murdered his family, a child forgiving the parent who abandoned them, prisoner forgiving themselves. Each one of them found their way back to peace. And here's what they all learned. Forgiveness does not change the past. It changes your relationship to the past. It allows you to move forward, unshackled. So how do you begin to forgive? Let's walk through it together. 1. Acknowledge the hurt. Don't push it away. Say it out loud. I was hurt. I was betrayed. This pain is real. You cannot heal what you do not feel. The Buddha taught us not to suppress emotions, but to understand them. When you name your pain, you give it boundaries. And what you can see clearly, you can let go of clearly. To ask yourself, what am I holding on to? Is it the need for them to suffer too? Is it the hope for an apology that may never come? Is it pride, revenge, whatever it is? Be honest. Then gently ask, is this helping me, or is it only hurting me more? In Buddhism, this is called yoniso manasikara, wise reflection. It's the beginning of transformation. 3. Visualize their humanity. This is not to excuse the harm, but to soften your anger. Close your eyes and picture the person who hurt you not as a monster, but as a being shaped by pain, confusion, ignorance. Ask yourself, what must they have gone through to act that way? The Buddha saw even his enemies as beings trapped in suffering. He didn't hate them, he pitied them. And then, he freed himself. 4. Use forgiveness phrases. Even if they feel hollow at first, repeat silently, I forgive you. I release this pain. I choose peace. I forgive myself. I was doing the best I could. Say it again. And again and again, until it starts to melt your anger like ice in sunlight. 5. Write a letter, but don't send it. This is powerful. Write to the one who hurt you. Say everything you need to say. Scream on the page, cry, rant, then end with, and now, I let this go. Burn it, bury it, tear it up, do whatever feels like closure, but let the pain leave your body with the paper. And remember, sometimes the hardest person to forgive is yourself, for the mistakes, for the regrets, for the things you wish you had done differently. But if the Buddha could forgive Angulimala, man who killed 999 people, surely you can forgive yourself. You are not your worst moment. You are the heart that wants to be better. That counts for everything. So today, I invite you to ask, what would my life feel like without this anger? Lighter, softer, more open, and take one step toward that version of you, even if it's just a breath, even if it's just a tear, because every time you forgive, you break a chain, not for them, for you, and you take one more step toward the Buddha's path, the path of freedom. The path of light, the path of a heart no longer weighed down. There's a story from ancient times, simple yet unforgettable. A wandering ascetic once approached the Buddha and without introduction began hurling insults. You're a fraud. You're misleading people. You've wasted your life in delusion. He expected anger, a rebuke, a fight, but the Buddha just sat there, calm, composed, unmoved. After a while the man grew tired, confused. "Why don't you react?" he demanded. And the Buddha said gently, "If someone offers a gift, but the gift is not accepted, who does it belong to?" The man paused. "To the giver," he replied. "Exactly," said the Buddha. "I do not accept your anger, so it remains with you. Let that sink in. To live beyond anger isn't about suppressing it, it's about seeing it for what it is, a gift you don't have to accept. And once you no longer accept it, from yourself or others, you become unshakable, like a mountain in the storm, like the ocean untouched by the moon's pull. This is the state that Buddha called a mind like a still lake, and it's possible, not just for monks, but for you right now, today. So, how do we go from being icily provoked to becoming unpredictable? It's a journey of practice. And every step you take builds your inner peace. Let's explore how. 1. Understand the mechanics of anger. First, realize this: anger never arises out of nowhere. It's a reaction, a mental habit, a reflex to something not going the way you expected. Someone cuts in line, your partner forgets something, a coworker disrespects you. Each of these is a trigger, but the anger, that's yours. That's your interpretation. That's your expectation, clashing with reality. The Buddha taught, when you attach to how things should be, you suffer when they're not. So, the first way to weaken anger is to challenge your assumptions. Instead of "this shouldn't happen," try "it happened. How can I respond with wisdom?" 2. Train your mind like a warrior trains the sword in the Dhammapada. It is said, a person is not wise because they speak much, but one who is peaceful, loving, and fearless, they are truly called wise. You don't become unshakable by reading quotes or attending retreats alone. You become unshakable by practicing every day. Think of your mind like a muscle. Every time you pause before reacting, breathe through irritation, speak kindly under pressure, you are strengthening your serenity. Over time, what once inflamed you becomes harmless because your mind has been trained in peace. 3. Sit with anger. Don't flee from it. Avoiding anger gives it power. But if you sit with it, observe it, like a scientist watching a storm, it begins to lose its grip. Next time you feel it rise, say silently, "Hello, anger. I see you, but I won't follow you." Then breathe. Feel where it lives in your body. Is it in your chest, your jaw, your fists? Just watch. Like watching a fire burn itself out when you don't add more wood. That's mindfulness. That's mastery. 4. Contemplate impermanence. This moment will pass. This insult will fade. This wound will heal. When you see everything as changing, fleeting, not yours, you stop gripping so tightly. The Buddha often reminded his disciples, all conditioned things are impermanent. When one sees this with wisdom, one turns away from suffering. So, next time you're hurt or enraged, remember, this too is just a passing cloud. I am the sky. 5. Know the true cost of anger. Anger feels powerful, but it costs you. It shortens your life. It scars your relationships. It poisons your thoughts. It clouds your ability to see clearly. And most of all, it robs you of the present moment. The Buddha compared anger to a red-hot iron ball. You grip it, and then blame the world for your burnt hand. When you see this clearly, anger becomes unattractive. You'll still feel it, sometimes, but you won't want it. Point 6. Develop the 4 Brahma Viharas, divine abodes. These are the 4 supreme qualities that elevate your mind above the ordinary. Metta, loving kindness, the wish for others to be happy. Karunj, compassion, the wish for others to be free from suffering. Mudita, sympathetic joy, the joy in others' success. Epikard, equanimity, balance and peace in the face of life's ups and downs. The more you dwell in these, the less room there is for hatred, because love and anger cannot coexist. They are like light and shadow. One always dissolves the other. 7. Follow the example of the great ones, the Buddha, Jesus, Martin Luther King Jr., Nelson Mandela. What do they all have in common? They were provoked endlessly, attacked, insulted, imprisoned, yet they responded with dignity, compassion, and resolve. They became pillars of peace in a world addicted to conflict, not because it was easy, but because it was necessary. You too can be that light. You too can choose a different path. Point 8. Ask, who am I without anger? This is the deepest question, because many of us have built our identities around pain. We think, if I forgive, I'll be weak. If I let go, they win. If I don't get revenge, I'm a fool. But in truth, letting go is strength. Peace is victory. Compassion is power. So ask yourself, who would I be? If I stopped holding this grudge, what would I become? If I rose above this anger, the answer might just be free. So here we are. Dear listener, you've walked a long path from understanding anger's roots, to learning how to respond with wisdom, to envisioning a life beyond its grip. This isn't just a teaching. It's an invitation. To live as the Buddha lived, to let nothing disturb your peace, to become the calm in the storm, the unshakable mind, the still lake. Close your eyes for a moment, take a deep breath in, and let it out slowly. Imagine a world without anger. Imagine waking up to a sky not heavy with resentment, but glowing with understanding. Imagine families not yelling, but listening. Imagine strangers not judging, but helping. Imagine nations not arming, but embracing. Far-fetched, unrealistic, perhaps, but that world begins not with governments or revolutions. It begins in you. It begins every time you choose love over hate, peace over revenge, understanding over blame. It begins the moment you say, I will no longer feed the fire. The Buddha once said, hatred does not cease by hatred, but only by love. This is the eternal law. And yet, how often do we try to fix the world by shouting louder, by condemning harder, by pushing people away instead of pulling them in? Anger promises power, but love delivers transformation. This is not just poetry. This is Dharma. This is the only way suffering ends. There's a story that has been passed from monk to monk, teacher to disciple, for centuries. A young monk once asked his master, Venerable Sir, how can I save the world? The master looked at him and said, Can you sit for an hour without anger? The monk nodded. Can you speak for a day without harsh words? The monk hesitated, but said, Yes, I think I can. The master smiled. Then you have already begun. The world changes every time one heart chooses peace. So let's talk about you. You've listened through this entire journey, 10 parts, countless reflections, memories, truths. You've probably remembered times you were angry, times you regretted, times you were hurt so deeply you never thought you'd recover. And yet, here you are, still breathing, still healing, still capable of choosing something different. You are not your past. You are not your wounds. You are not your mistakes. You are the awareness that can transform them. But transformation needs practice. So here, dear friend, are a few final practices to keep in your heart. 1. Begin every day with a loving kindness thought before the world touches you. Touch the world with a blessing. Say quietly, may all beings be free from suffering. May I be peaceful. May I respond with compassion. Today, you'll be amazed how this simple ritual reshapes your day. 2. Carry a pause in your pocket when anger rises. Don't react immediately. Pause, breathe, ask, will this response bring peace or more pain? That single pause can save relationships. It can save lives. 3. Write forgiveness letters. If you don't send them, write to the one who hurt you. Write to yourself. End every letter with, I choose peace. I choose to let go. It is not weakness. It is the greatest strength of all. 4. Surround yourself with peaceful voices. Watch teachings. Read Dharma. Sit with those who walk gently. Let their energy remind you of who you want to be. Peace is contagious too. 5. Live as if you're planting seeds. Every thought, every word, every action. It's a seed. Ask yourself, what will this grow into? Plant kindness, plant patience, plant forgiveness, and let the garden of your life bloom in beauty. One day, someone will ask you, how did you become so calm? How did you learn to forgive? Why do you always bring peace wherever you go? And you'll smile because you'll remember this journey. You'll remember the hurt, the anger, the nights of crying, the mornings of trying, and how, slowly, like the lotus that blooms from muddy waters, you changed. And that, dear friend, is how love triumphs over hatred. Not in grand speeches, not in big battles, but in small, sacred decisions made in the silence of your heart. Every time you don't yell, every time you don't judge, every time you choose compassion instead, the world changes. You change. And that's how peace begins. So may this story stay with you. May it whisper to you when you're angry. May it anchor you when you're lost. May it comfort you when you're hurt. And may it always remind you that within you lives the power to end hatred, not just for yourself, but for this aching world. Thank you for walking this path with me. May the noble triple gem bless your journey, and may your heart always return to peace.